Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Oleksandr Adamov, and I'm, as well as Alexei, originally from Ukraine. So I teach in my home university in Kharkiv National University of Radio Electronics and here at BTHO. And my specialization here is malware analysis, and I also run the course called Security for Critical Infrastructure in Promise project. And that's why we're here, probably. And I'd like to tell you about threats to national security that may appear if you do not follow the security best practices that Alexei mentioned. So we'll talk about this cybersecurity from another side, from the side of attacks, and how these attacks have been performed, and why they were successful. So I'll start with a couple of slides about ransomware attack because it's pretty much essential, and they were on the rise like several years ago. For example, there is such a phenomenon as a ransomware as a service. Ransomware as a service, it's diversification of different activities between different hacking groups. So if you want to hack into an organization and demand to pay a ransom, but you don't have skills to create ransomware or any kind of another backdoor or malware, then you can rent it. Simply buy the infrastructure, buy malware, and this is called ransomware as a service. So there are guys who are professionals in creating ransomware, crypto lockers. This is a piece of software that once executed on your computers, on your servers, in your infrastructure, would encrypt files on the disks. And then you will be asked to pay a ransom. And these guys, they are really good in implementing this, and they also maintain infrastructure, such as the data leak site, and there is such a phenomenon as double extortion. Double extortion is, so first component of the double extortion is your files are encrypted and you cannot access to it. So in order to restore the operation of your services and access to your data, you need to pay a ransom, and you get a decryptor. You can decrypt files on your disk, and then you are back online. And the second component of double extortion is information disclosure. So usually before being encrypted, the files are exfiltrated to the attacker server, and then they threaten you, victim's organization, that they will publish this information. And this is typically done on data leak sites. So if you Google, you will find a lot of such publications in the media when, for example, like recently Boeing's files were supposed to be published, but then it seems to be they paid ransom, and then this data were removed from the data leak site. So yeah, that's second component, because probably information disclosure, especially in the light of GDPR, is the more dangerous. So here is an example of Black Cat ransomware. Black Cat is a ransomware group or campaign that are also known that members of this group, they are part of another group such as DarkSide and AlphaV, and they are, as you can see, targeting critical infrastructure, specifically industrial companies such as gas pipelines, petrol supply firm, energy companies in Italy, in Germany, in the United States. Colonial Pipeline, you probably heard about these attacks. It happened in 2020 when Russian DarkSide, when Russian ransomware group called DarkSide encrypted data on the IT OT systems that were responsible for running Colonial Pipeline, and it caused the disruption of this pipeline, and as a result, it causes the gas crisis because people cannot buy, for example, on the eastern coast, they couldn't buy gas for their cars. So that's how cyber criminals, they can pose a threat to national security. So typically we split all attacks based on the motivation into two groups, into two classes. One class is cyber criminals. They are financially motivated, like this one that run ransomware. And the second class of such threat actors are state-sponsored groups. They are usually like part of intelligence group financed by the governments, and they are probably the more dangerous, because in this case you can pay the ransom and get your data back. But in case of nation-state attacks, we will talk about them a little bit later in the context of Russia-Ukraine war. It's not possible to get back. Another interesting operation is Wasted Locker, run by Evil Corp Group, and the head of Evil Corp Group is Maxim Yakubets. So he was born in Ukraine, but now he is hosted in Russia, in Moscow. So they ran successful attack against Garmin that caused shutting down some backend services, and that led, for example, that some GPS navigation system, they were out of operation for some period of time. They published this information on July 23rd, 2020, saying that unfortunately they have this outage for the service called Garmin Connect. And then 4 days later, probably they pay the ransom and they get the data back, and they say, okay, we are happy to report that all our services are back online. So supposedly they pay something between $500,000 and $10 million in Bitcoin. So just to give you estimation, so why security is important, even economically beneficial to invest into security. Otherwise, you need to pay such a big ransoms and also fines, for example, for violating privacy regulations and cybersecurity regulations. But what's interesting from technical perspective, so why these operations were so successful? Because this is my like a primary research area. So I take a look inside of this malware and trying to figure out, okay, what other techniques were used in these operations, in these cyber attacks, so they could bypass, for example, antivirus defense. So Alexei told about proactive defense, when you, for example, design your infrastructure in such a way that it's hard, for example, to introduce vulnerability. But there is a reactive approach. So if attack happens, so how to identify it, detect, stop, contain, and mitigate the consequences. And in this case, attackers, they use a digital signing approach. So all the files were signed with digital certificates. This helped to bypass antivirus defense to some extent. Then they use they attack Windows operating system, and they store their files not in a regular file system, but rather in ADS, alternate data stream. This is a special feature of NTFS, Windows NTFS, where that allows you to store metadata for your files, for your folders. But it's interesting that if you store some data inside, for example, binary, like executable file in this ADFS, you can create process. You can start process from this data. So you can see this file in your Explorer on Windows, let's say, but you can attackers can create process from this file. So it's quite interesting. They also exploited a caching mechanism, and this technique is called lazy writing. By the way, there is a talk at conference, so if you're interested in technical details, so you can just watch it on YouTube. I'm not going to dive deeply into technical implementation, but the idea is the attackers, they managed to perform data encryption on behalf of system process. So for antivirus, it was looking like system process encrypting files on disks. And because it was system process, like a Windows kernel encrypting files on disk, so antivirus couldn't block it. Supply chain attacks. Again, this can be it's better that they would be mitigated when you design your software development process. But in some cases, when the company didn't pay attention to supply chain security, didn't mitigate the threat, we have quite big with high impact cyber attacks, and the one you can see it's NotPetya. Probably you've heard, because it affected not only organizations inside of Ukraine, and there were like many companies, critical infrastructure, banks, post offices, supply chain, like supermarkets, gas stations. They were out of operation for several days because of this cyber attack. But probably this will be interesting for you because the tool that was compromised in the supply chain was actually the tool that was used to submit tax reports. And that was like the most popular tool at that time. It's 2017, and I was using this as well. Fortunately, I didn't get the latest updates with NotPetya ransomware, and my computer was not encrypted. But many organizations they got the update. The backdoor was embedded into one of the DLLs that were part of this Medoc product. Again, so why it was possible? Because first, there was no security at all in CI/CD in updating mechanism. So the attackers, by the way, it's Sandworm group. We are going to talk about it later. It's a military intelligence group, Russian military intelligence group. It's a state-sponsored attack. They managed to hack into the update server and the backdoor into one of the DLLs. And then this backdoor was used to, first they collect information about the organization, like a tax ID. So if you know tax ID, then you know, okay, what organizations are compromised, and then you can run malware on these organizations. And then they ran several ransomware, and finally on June 27th, they ran NotPetya, what was a fake ransomware. So it was, it encrypted master file table, but there was no chance to repair to decrypt it because the original ransomware that was used to create this NotPetya, it's called Petya ransomware. It stores the key, so when you pay the ransom, you can get this key and get access to the key and decrypt. But in case of NotPetya, there were no, it was not possible. So even though they say that it is mandatory to pay the ransomware, those who paid, they didn't receive anything because it was destructive attacks. It was not actually ransomware. Another interesting attack, by the way, conducted by also by a Russian state-sponsored group, attack against SolarWinds Orion platform that happened in 2020, and because of that, Russian state hackers, they managed to get into more than 1,000 organizations in the United States, including FireEye and Microsoft. From FireEye, Russian hackers stole the hacking tools that they use for red teaming activities, and for and there were many other companies that were compromised. How Russian hackers could get into SolarWinds platform, and they ran supply chain attacks. They embed the backdoor called Sunburst into the product. How did they manage to get into this update server? That's the most fun part of this. They use password for update server that was published in GitHub repository, and this exposure was reported by one of the security researchers in Twitter, but the company didn't change the password, and the password was SolarWinds 123. So after this researcher reported this, of course, Russian hackers they saw this, and then they used this password to get to the update server. So that's so simple. Another attack by Revel Group. Revel is also Russian. It's a Russian cyber criminal group. They compromised another tool called Kaseya VSA, Virtual System Administrator, quite popular tool. And this, by the way, affected Sweden. My students ask me, have I known the attack against Coop supermarket when they were out of operation for several days? So that's the one. But Coop supermarkets were not the primary target, so it was supply chain attack, and the target was actually the organizations that use Kaseya VSA, specifically Visma. Visma was compromised, and through Visma they compromised Coop. So that's why supply chain attacks, they are so dangerous, and yeah, it is essential to take all these measures that Alexei mentioned when you create your CI/CD pipeline. So you have like a zero trust approach to third-party components, to suppliers, and so on. And this is how it worked. So you can see this is a Kaseya VSA agent hotfix. This is not hotfix, but it's Revil ransomware delivered through update mechanism. It's a screenshot of security events log from one of the compromised Windows server. And let's take a look at Russia-Ukraine war. In general, we've seen in 2022, but not only during the after the full-scale invasion, before, we had a bunch of cyber attacks. Some of them were run against general IT, for example, NotPetya, Whispergate, Hermetic Viper, and so on. Some of marked in yellow, these were targeting energy systems, specifically power grids, just to cause a blackout and damage the power grid distribution equipment. And one attack, acid rain, that I'm going to talk a little bit more in details, was against satellite communications. And by the way, all these attacks were conducted by one group. It's called Sandworm. It's an APT group, military intelligence group. And here's the timeline. So the attack started before the full-scale invasion. The first attack happened on, like it was 2 stages of the same attack, 13 and 14 January of 2022, and the operation, the campaign was called Whispergate. The first part of the attack was defacement of the government websites. Specifically, more than 70 government websites and services were compromised. This is, for example, I took screenshot. This is the Ministry of Education and Science of Ukraine. And the Russian hackers, they put the same picture on all websites. And they said that supposedly this was hacked by Polish hackers for some reason. And they say this is like a revenge for some historical events in the past, and but of course that was not Polish hackers. And the second stage of this attack was actually running the Vipers. Vipers were used for 2 purposes. Vipers is a piece of malware that destroys data on disk or in files, like NotPetya. So the reason for using Vipers is first to conceal the traces after the successful attack, because once you start digital forensics and investigate the traces of the attack, so you can find, okay, what kind of malware were used, and then you can send this malware to antivirus companies. They would start detecting it, and that's will end of campaign. Of course, hiding traces is also helps to avoid some attribution. Okay, which country is behind this attack? But another reason is denial of service. So if we talk about destructive cyber attacks that are conducted during the wartime, so the adversary may want to take down critical services like a bank system, media, government registers. And if the adversary can take this down, so there would be no need for like thousands of tanks, missiles, or whatever, because if you have your economics rely heavily on digital services, and your society that relies on digital services, and this digital service disappear one day, so there will be a chaos in the country, and that's a prerequisite for successful takeover by the adversary. So that's why it is essential to guarantee the security of critical services. And here we saw two types of Viper attacks. One is file Viper, another one disk Viper. I'm not going to go like deeply in technical details, but this is kill chain for the file Viper. And here we can see that some of the part of the attack, they run in the memory. Again, they run this execute malware in the memory, trying to bypass antivirus defense. And that's why, for specifically, this Whispergate attack was pretty sophisticated, and they were hard to detect by antivirus, by traditional antiviruses, or what they are called now, EDR or XDR. They were also signed with digital certificates, but this one was invalid because they just copied the digital certificate um, from the system tool from the Russian version of the operating system. And if supposedly from Explorer, and if you take a look at the details of this file, you will see that it's a copy of file version info from Explorer that is run in Russian Windows software operating system. And this is again one more hint for attribution, just to understand, okay, who is behind this attack. So the developers were using Russian version of the operating system. Another trick that the Russian hackers did when just trying to deliver these destructive vipers, they use Discord to share malware, specifically Discord CDN. So when you upload file to Discord channel, there it is available as an attachment. And then you can share the link to this file. Well, to be honest, Discord has its own antivirus, as many other file sharing services like Dropbox, Google Drive, OneDrive from Microsoft. They all have antiviruses. So when you try to upload any piece of malware into a file sharing service, it will be blocked. But what Russian hackers did, they first they renamed it as a JPEG file, but still renaming the file from like .exe or DLL. It was actually DLL. Renaming file from DLL to JPEG is not enough to trick the antivirus. They just reverse the byte in the file, and this is like end of the file. So it starts from zeros, but end of the file is a header of PE file. PE, it's a portable executable file. So it's executable file with reverse bytes. And that's why antivirus couldn't detect it. So for example, I have some videos for students just to demonstrate how these attacks were executed and run. So for example, this is a JPEG file, and if we open it, that was downloaded from Discord. You can see that the file starts with zeros, which is anomaly. So usually files starts with some header, with some so-called magic bytes that helps operating system to identify the type of the file. But in this case, it's zeros. But if you slide down to the bottom of the file, so you will see this is a executable header. But you need just to reverse the file from the beginning to the end. So that's how they managed to bypass antivirus defense. Okay, let's go further. Another trick is fileless execution. So it is possible using .NET framework to upload DLL into the process in the memory without creating process and without storing this DLL on disk. So it's like a legitimate function, and the hackers from Sandworm and later from Turla group. Turla, it's attributed to FSB, like internal intelligence, but they were mostly traced as a group that are conducting operations outside of Russia. So they are more supporting foreign intelligence groups. Well, that's again analysis of. If you're interested in technical details, this analysis of another types of Viper, which is called disk Viper. So, and here they similarly like in NotPetya case, they place itself into master boot record. They reboot computer. When you reboot computer, this Viper starts from MBR instead of your operating system. In case of NotPetya, they were saying, okay, we are running scan disk. Have you heard about ScanDisk? This is probably those who run who like old enough to run for example Microsoft Windows systems, they know that ScanDisk is kind of tool, automatic tool that's used to fix errors on hard disk in old times. And they say, okay, we are scanning the disk, trying to fix, but instead of that, they were encrypting master file table. That was not PETA. In this case, this wiper wiped with bytes CC, just, it doesn't matter, every 199th sector of the disk. Even though it's not all sectors are wiped, your operating system won't start because some data are corrupted. And then they say, it's hard to see here, but they say your hard drive has been corrupted. In case you want to recover old hard drive at your organization, you should pay us $10,000 in Bitcoins. By the way, $10,000 in Bitcoins, this is the same ransom payment as NotPetya asked to pay. So that's, and of course, if you pay, you don't recover your system because it's a state-sponsored attack to destroy servers. So that's Whispergate. This happened before full-scale invasion. So then, several hours before full-scale invasion on February 23rd, they ran another attack using another wiper and ransomware, again against government services, against government infrastructure to take down, and together with full-scale invasion, like next morning, they ran an attack called Acid Rain. And Acid Rain is an attack to take down satellite communication, specifically Viasat-Kasat. So why Russians want to take down this satellite communication? Because these were used by Ukrainian militaries. So they used this satellite communication, and now, as you know, we use Starlinks. By the way, this attack affected not only Ukrainian satellites, modems. Actually, attack was about delivering bad firmware to satellite modems. It's a supply chain attack. So hackers, they hacked Viasat company and delivered bad firmware through the update mechanism. That's why, again, it's essential to guarantee that your update mechanism is protected. So it's also affected all modems in the EU. Specifically in Germany, there were like several thousands of modems that were used to communicate wind turbines with the SCADA server that were out of operation. Fortunately, not all pieces of malware that were executed against Ukrainian government services, they were successful. For example, this is the case of unsuccessful attack. So the attackers, they delivered Viper on February 24, like the same day with full-scale invasion, but it didn't work. And there is a reason because it didn't work, because they tried to wipe the data from the disk out of boot sectors. And this is prohibited by Windows since Windows Vista. And then they, to figure out, okay, what went wrong, they enabled login. And next day, they delivered like another version of Viper with logs. So they can see the logs and understand, okay, why it doesn't work. This is the attack. So we had, I mentioned, at least 3 attacks against energy sector and against power grids. This one was executed on, scheduled to be executed on April 8, 2022, like 2 months after full-scale invasion. And again, the attack was about switching off energy networks, but it was a little bit more complex than just causing the blackout. Before switching off electricity and distribution networks, the attackers, they disabled safety relays that were responsible for coping with electricity spikes when you switch on or switch off power distribution relays. And if you have this safety feature disabled, so it may result that when you switch on electricity again, it will destroy the power distribution equipment. So it's a little bit more sophisticated attack. And again, after they plan to execute attacks against energy system, they schedule it like a half an hour after they scheduled execution of Viper to hide the traces of the attack. It's interesting and funny that they call this Viper peremoga.exe, and peremoga is in Ukrainian called victory. And yeah, they use some obfuscation mechanism again to bypass antivirus protection. And just in the end of this presentation, who is this Sandworm group? So in Russia, we have, we know that they have three major intelligence departments. One is it's a foreign intelligence department. This is the Federal Security Service, which is a former KGB. It's an internal intelligence group. And GRU is a military intelligence. So if we talk about the group Sandworm that I mentioned during today's presentation, so they are part of GRU. They are part of the military units, military intelligence units. And they were responsible for all these attacks against critical infrastructure, energy systems, not only in Ukraine, by the way, also in Pyongyang. In 2018, they attacked infrastructure, IT infrastructure of the Olympic Games. And this is the headquarters. This is the office they are located. It's in suburb of Moscow. And this is the current head of Sandworm Group. He was previously head of another GRU unit called APT-28. APT-28 is also a hacking group that was responsible for cyber attacks, but they were specializing on so-called close proximity attacks. What is close proximity attacks? For example, when hackers, they cannot get into the network just sending spare phishing emails or exploiting vulnerability or finding password to update servers or whatever, they go physically to the location and they set up fake Wi-Fi networks using device called Wi-Fi Pineapple. This fake Wi-Fi network, to this network, the employees of the organization can connect, and all the traffic that goes through this fake Wi-Fi network will be visible to the attacker. So did they when they try to get into Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons in Hague, in Netherlands. So when he was head of APT-28 and 6 more GRU agents, they traveled to Hague. They parked their car in front of this organization, and then they deployed this Wi-Fi Pineapple device to attract traffic from the employees. Of course, they were arrested by the Dutch police, and with all the equipment. And when the Dutch police investigated the case and they get access to this laptop, they traced all the Wi-Fi connections, and they figured out that they were attacking also all Olympic Games, specifically in Rio de Janeiro in 2016. So they were present on many, many other events. And finally, they released them and deported to Russia. And as later, Dutch authorities said that they had a conversation with between Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Ministry of Defense, and then they decided to release them in order to not to cause some counteraction from the Russia side, because they were afraid for lives of Dutch diplomats in Moscow. And why this guy and APT-28, they were trying to get into this Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, because this organization at that time were investigating of the case of poisoning Skripal. Skripal was former KGB agent, and he moved to the UK, and he was poisoned with Novichok. It's a Russian poison. So they try to get into the network of this organization, trying to figure out what information, what knowledge is available for the investigators regarding this poisoning case. So that's it. So I try to show that critical infrastructure and the services, government services that are part of critical infrastructure require strict defense, require like special measures to be protected, because it's not only the motivation can be not only for regular cyber criminals to make money, but also for nations, for state-sponsored groups that can run these attacks as a part of cyber war. And as I said, if the country, if the adversary has capabilities to run the cyber attacks, then it's quite possible that they can take down the country's digital services. So again, Alexei mentioned already before about our project Promise. So personally, I'm responsible for 3 courses in this project. Again, it's probably you know, it's a program where we designed like 20 plus courses, and every engineer can apply, professional can apply for this course to take it on distance. It's free because it's financed by Knowledge Foundation of Sweden. And I'm responsible for the course. One is Security and Software Development Lifecycle. It's pretty much what Alexei has told today. So I consider Microsoft Security Development Lifecycle in the course and the practices that can be introduced, such as static code analysis, dynamic application security testing, threat modeling. It's just an introductory course. And also 2 other courses, these are advanced, probably more suitable and more popular among policing, but still, if you do some advanced security investigations, malware analysis and security for critical infrastructure, that can be also interesting. And Alexei showed, but one more time, this is the schedule for Spring 2024. Unfortunately, the project is going to end by the end of 2025. But until that point, it's possible to apply and take these courses. After that point, this will be part of regular curriculum for students, and we don't know yet how it will be possible to engage professionals, because it will be in campus, and we are not sure if it's going to be possible. But until the end of 2025, all the courses you can take any of the courses, and if you collect enough credits, so you can take the degree if you're interested. So that's all from my side. Thank you.